Ramsey from 6 till 9 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Whole Tree Care. A 32-year-old North Logan woman who was previously convicted of beating a child with a hanger has been convicted again of child abuse and will be sentenced next month. Cassie Tolman was found guilty on Friday following a 3-day jury trial in First District Court. According to prosecutors, Tolman was arrested in March 2019 after a 10-year-old boy described being assaulted by her. The boy had several injuries to his head. The victim told North Park police officers that Tolman was on the phone and became upset with whomever she was talking to. When she hung up the phone, she charged at the boy and his 6-year-old sister. She then entered the boy's room and started yelling and pushing him. During the assault, she kicked his head repeatedly and used a bag of frozen pizza rolls to strike him in the face. According to court records, the jury deliberated for just over 2 hours before reaching their verdict, finding Tolman guilty of child abuse, a second-degree felony. She was immediately taken into custody and transferred to the Cache County Jail. Tolman was arrested in March 2017 after an 8-year-old child was found with multiple bruises all over its body. Officers later learned that the defendant had become angry and threw the child to the floor. She then used a metal clothing hanger to whip the child. Tolman later accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to 1 count of child abuse, amended to a Class A misdemeanor. She was later sentenced to 5 days in jail and 120 hours of community service. During Friday's trial, Judge Angela Fonsbeck ordered Tolman to undergo a pre-sentence report about her criminal history. She also scheduled sentencing for October 4th. KVNU News Time is 5:07. KVNU weather for tonight. Mostly cloudy skies is our forecast, and there is a chance of showers and a few thunderstorms this evening. Overnight low tonight, right around 50 degrees. And then tomorrow, more showers in the forecast. Light chance of thunderstorms in the morning, showers and a few thunderstorms in the afternoon. 70% chance of rain, high in the low 70s. It is 68 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by the Duct Hunter. Does a duct cleaning coupon in the mail seem too good to be true? Sometimes it is. Call the Duct Hunter at 770-4813 before you fall for an offer in the mail.
Man, let's talk about something serious.
I tried the pill. It didn't work.
No, I'm talking about your yard, specifically trees and shrubs. They need your attention. You can't just let them grow unruly and wild, like your beard.
Hey!
Call Hull Tree Care. They have the crew, the experience, and knowledge to trim your trees and shrubs right. Call 760-6587 and ask for their radio discount. Hull Tree Care. That's Hull Tree Care. 760-6587.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. A strike team of law enforcement officers from various agencies across the state of Utah come together when called upon by the U.S. Marshals Service to track down wanted violent criminals. The Violent Fugitive Apprehension Strike Team, or VFAST, is overseen by the U.S. Marshals Service out of Salt Lake City. Salt Lake County Sheriff Rosie Rivera said it's a team that goes after violent fugitives, and many in the community may not even know what they do. Many are violent offenders where they had committed homicides or multiple homicides, violent gang crime, major drug cases, or they are drug dealers. 7 members of the Unified Police Department are part of the VFAST team. Recently, the U.S. Marshals Service recognized the UPD with its VFAST Agency of the Year award, just the second time that has been given. And investigators are interviewing a driver who shot another driver in the face during an argument in rush hour traffic Tuesday evening. Shooting happened just before 5 p.m. in Taylorsville. Sergeant Creston Bennett with Taylorsville Police said someone got upset, words were exchanged, and a gunshot occurred. According to police, someone in a blue Dodge Ram fired at a driver in a white Tesla. The Tesla driver was hit in the face, and paramedics transported him to a local hospital. Investigators told KUTV that both drivers were cooperating with the investigation. It's too early to determine who may face charges. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
It's been a crazy few months with big rainstorms fueling the weeds in your lawn, garden, or empty lot, and the spiders coming inside to beat the heat. You need help. Let Logan Extermination take care of those pesky weeds and unwanted pests with an exterior lawn application and interior treatment for bugs. Call Logan Extermination today before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Weed control starts at $45. Interior spider spray starts at $95.
Hey, get prepared for the hunting season. Did you remember to bring your hunting gear, your sleeping bags, and coats into Mount Logan Laundry? With their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, they can do any job. And while you're at it, bring in the comforters and blankets and get ready for the colder months ahead. Try Mount Logan Laundry. For a few quarters, you can use their large-capacity washers and dryers and be done in no time. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. They're at the corner of 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham on the corner of 1st East and 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Very excited to kick things off here with a very special guest joining us to talk about, a lot of different things. And there is a lot of setup required for this because there's a lot going on. There's still fundraising and work going for the cultural center that will be located at the original site of the Bear River Massacre. Smithfield Library's Adult Reading Club is actually taking up the book, The Bear River Massacre, A Shoshone History, for this month's Adult Reading Club choice. And, of course, the anniversary, 150 years of Yellowstone, has been recognized and discussed at an event that happened just outside the Yellowstone Lodge, in fact, with members of several tribes, but, of course, the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone tribe there. So joining us right now, president of the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone tribe and good friend of the show, Darren Parry. Darren, appreciate you taking some time for KVNU today. On short notice, we should point out for listeners, but we appreciate you doing it. I'm not sure where you want to start. I mean, this is a lot to try and cover here, but when I saw your book was the choice for this month's Smithfield Library Adult Reading Club, it just reminded me of all this stuff I've been reading about this summer, and a fascinating article in the Salt Lake Tribune on the tribe's meeting outside the Yellowstone Lodge there, or the Old Faithful Lodge, in Yellowstone, to recognize the history of the land that is now Yellowstone National Park to the rest of us for many of these tribes. Tell us what goes through your head as you watch all this play out this year.
Well, thanks for being on, Jason. I love to participate any time I can. So,
our pleasure.
As you think about Yellowstone, and it's my favorite national park, and I've gone to a lot of them, but it's historically so important to the Shoshone people. And I wish I could say it was just the Shoshones, but it takes up such a big landmass area that, it's a sacred place for many tribes. The Nez Perce and Crow and many of the tribes, along with the Shoshones, found that a place of healing. And what strikes me the most as I look at the park in the years that it's been, first of all, the fact that it's been 150 years, it was created in 1872 by President Grant. That tells me volumes, because that's right in a period of time when colonialism was grabbing land.
Sure.
And the fact that it got saved and didn't go to, immigrants that were making their way from the East Coast, that were just stopping off and claiming a valley as their own, and because that's what was happening across the country. And so the fact that Ulysses S. Grant had enough foresight, and I think the railroad really helped in that to the fact that Ulysses S. Grant had the foresight to preserve, more than 2 million acres.
Sure.
Is really fascinating to me, because they were living in a time of massive land grabs by people that were coming from the east to the west coast, and the fact that the railroad had already gone through, that wasn't uncharted territory anymore. So it just boggles my mind that he would have done that, and grateful that he did it, because otherwise, it would have been chopped up into a million different pieces and a million different landowners.
Sure.
And we wouldn't have that gem that we have today. And so, for all the good, Grant and the war and everything else, and uniting a country, the fact that he did that. And what a lot of people don't know is the bison that had been almost brought to extinction was saved because of the Yellowstone National Park.
Sure.
Those maybe 300 bison that were left in the whole world ended up in the Yellowstone Park, where they would be protected. And because of it, when you go there today, you know why. It's not an endangered species anymore. So really grateful that a president of the United States in 1872 had the wherewithal to put some land aside, the most beautiful land in the country, and so diverse in its landscapes.
Sure.
And the Shoshone loved it because of hunting, fishing, water, the hot springs. There's just so many things, the medicines that were found there. So it just was an important gathering place for not only the Shoshone tribe, but many tribes.
I was fascinating to read this. It was the article again was originally from Jackson Hole News, and then was picked up and repeated by the Salt Lake Tribune. But the title of this event, outside of the Old Faithful Lodge for the part of the Yellowstone 150-year celebration, was titled "We're Still Here," and representatives of the Shoshone and Bannock tribes talked about Yellowstone kind of being bittersweet for them. Everything you just mentioned, how the land was preserved, all of that, but it also meant displacement for a lot of the tribes, right?
Yeah, it was displacement, and I'll tell you, that was happening anyway.
Sure.
And so at a fast rate, when we signed the Treaty of 1863 at Fort Bridger, that pretty much ended the Shoshone's way of life out here in the West. And so, it was bittersweet. But the sweet part of that is we can still go there. We're still here. We can go there. And one thing the park does, and I'm not sure your listeners know, that they waive the entry fee for all Native Americans that want to go in and have a religious ceremony or even say a prayer. That's free of charge for any Native American that wants to do that. I think that's awesome.
Many people don't know that. In fact, I wasn't aware how extensive it is with tribal members going into Yellowstone and being able to use it in very traditional ways, right? In fact, you said the words "We're Still Here." That was the title of this big exhibit and cultural celebration at the Yellowstone, or the Old Faithful Lodge, last week. And I thought that was great to just remind people that the tribes have a continued presence within the park.
Absolutely. When I went to 70 elementaries last year and talked to the fourth graders about Shoshone culture, the last thing I say when I leave them is that we are still here. And so when I saw that article come out, I thought, I just had a smile on my face, because I think a lot of people think Native Americans are a relic of the past.
Sure.
And that's not true. The descendants of those people are still here. We're resilient. We continue to thrive, and we're doing the best we can to retain our culture and our languages. And so to have a place like that was so special to us, now that we have to share it with the world, that's okay, because everybody can enjoy it now. And so, I'm just grateful that, a president had the foresight to go ahead and do something like that back then.
Sure.
when it wouldn't have been popular at all.
Oh, no, that long ago. Yeah, especially as you mentioned with the expansion that was happening and how sought after land in the West was to have that foresight. It's such a great thing to see now. And Darren, you've made this part of your life's work, that making these stories alive and making it relatable to draw people in to learn more. I mentioned your book in the Smithfield Library's Adult Reading Club this month. For listeners, if you want to join that, details at smithfieldcity.org. But the book, The Bear River Massacre, A Shoshone History by Darren Parry, is a fascinating read. History populated with recipes, some of which I have to admit, Darren, I've tried. They're difficult, but it was fun. And just a perspective from the tribe's point of view on this moment in history that we all know at least some about. This has been important to you, right? To get these stories out there, to make them relatable, and to make people aware, right?
It has been. And, when Winston Churchill said that history was only written by the victors, he was absolutely true. And so, most of the history on Native Americans that we get today in our classrooms are written by non-Native Americans. And so when I wrote that book a couple of years ago, I just thought, you know what, whether you agree with it or not, and I'm okay whether you agree with it, at least it's history from the perspective of the people that were here first. And so I want people to have all different kind of perspectives and share their stories. And I just got a letter from BYU saying that Brigham Young University in every history class this year will use my book in some way in every history class that's taught at BYU this year. That I was the book of the year. And I'm overjoyed with just how well it's been received. Because I think at the end of the day, we can talk about hard history. But for me, it's always about, let's talk about it, but not dwell there. And then what can we do together to make this world a better place? And so that's, the massacre doesn't trap us in death.
Sure.
The massacre gives us an opportunity to share the stories of those who lived before, share the stories of those who are here now, and those who are going to come later. And so that's the story to me.
And please, to listeners who haven't had an opportunity to read it yet, pick up a copy of this book, The Bear River Massacre, A Shoshone History, by our guest Darren Parry, tribal leader with the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Tribe. If you'd like to see more about what we've been discussing here as well, the We're Still Here cultural celebration in Yellowstone last week, commemorating 150 years of the park, but also many more centuries of history for the tribes in that same area and how they still use land in the park for traditional purposes. It's a fascinating thing. Some great photos there as well of the celebration that took place outside the Old Faithful Lodge there in Yellowstone. Darren's book, again, will be a part of the Smithfield Library's Adult Reading Club this month. They have copies there to be checked out. They can also point you to where you can buy a copy of the book yourself. It's everywhere in the bookstores here in Utah, available everywhere online as well. And it's a fascinating read. And Darren, I know time with you is short today. We've got to part ways soon here. But any final thoughts on the Cultural Center itself as that moves along there on the side of the Bear River Massacre? I know things are moving pretty fast, right?
They are moving fast, and I'll tell you where they're moving really fast is in the restoration of the land.
Oh, wow.
We've received over $6.6 million in grants to clean up the water, to take out the invasive species, the Russian olive and other things. And we're really transforming that land, which was my goal, to make it look like what it did in 1863, using my grandmother's plant diary that's in my book. And so I'm still raising money to build the building up on the bluff, but the restoration project has been going for a year and a half now, and it's really picking up steam, and a lot of people are contributing. And KSL just did a big news thing on it Monday, and how us cleaning up some of those tributaries of the Bear River will actually help the Great Salt Lake. And so the Great Salt Lake's been in the news a lot lately, and so I've been heavily involved with those initiatives and really making sure we take care of the environment.
That's one of the things about the tribes and their relationship to land that I think we could all take a page from, especially right now here in Utah, using it while respecting it, right?
Yeah. In fact, I made the statement, we need the science, but we need this indigenous mindset. All the science in the world isn't going to solve our selfish behaviors. And so indigenous mindset is all about community and how whatever we do it for the good of the community. So
sure.
I hope we can combine both of those and really make a big difference.
That is so well said. And Darren, always a pleasure to have you here on the show. For listeners, again, I want to remind you his book is out there. You can get it in person at most local bookstores. It's available everywhere online as well. The Bear River Massacre, A Shoshone History by Darren Parry, our guest here, a good friend of the show, part of the Smithfield Adult Reading Club Book of the Month selection as well. If you'd like to join that and read along with others this month, Smithfield Library has details on that. We'll keep you updated on the Cultural Center as things progress there. If you want to see what Darren's talking about, the work being done restoration-wise, that, did get a mention as far as efforts to restore and save the Great Salt Lake. What they're doing there on the site of the Bear River Massacre is actually contributing in a positive way to that as well as restoring the area to its original, what it should look like. And that is something you can see right now. Just drive a bit north of Preston there. You'll see the work going on down there in the meadow. And Darren, always a pleasure to have you here on the show, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Hey, thanks, Jason. You guys take care.
You as well. And for listeners, please stay tuned. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Hi, this is Drew Allen with Allen Mortuaries. Over the years, thousands of families have planned ahead with Allen Mortuaries. Planning ahead helps you make informed and thoughtful decisions. It also spares your family the stress of making these decisions under the pressure of time and strong emotions. Allen Mortuaries' secure pre-need trust plan can save you nearly 40% versus other plans. Keep it simple, safe, and secure. Go with the proven choice, Allen Mortuaries. Voted best funeral home in Cache Valley in northern Utah. Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology would like to thank you for voting them Best Audiologist 2 years running in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Daines by calling 753-HEAR or visit cachehearing.com.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Thanks again to Darren Parry for his time today. Just a fascinating book, a fascinating convergence of events between Shoshone and Bannock tribes celebrating outside of the Old Faithful Lodge in Yellowstone this month to recognize their history, cultural and otherwise, to the land that is now Yellowstone, celebrating its 150th anniversary as a national park this year. The tribes celebrated alongside park managers and others with an event called We're Still Here. The event, as we discussed with Darren, the purpose of the event was to recognize that the park was bittersweet for tribes. It meant preservation of the land and the wildlife and their opportunity to continue to use the land for cultural and religious purposes and more. But it also meant a lot of them were moved to Fort Hall, to other reservations around the area in Wyoming and Idaho. And that was already happening, as Darren just told us, but it made the park's designation bittersweet, one tribal leader said. Please check out this article. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. It's from Jackson Hole News, and it has some great quotes and even more fascinating, some great pictures. It talks about, as the treaties were signed in the late 1800s, the Eastern Shoshone lived in and around Yellowstone at the time. They were sent to the Wind Rivers Reservation, just across the mountains from Jackson Hole. And then the northern Arapaho people also joined them a bit later. The two nations were not friendly. They had warred repeatedly before being stuffed together on this reservation. That was difficult for the tribes, of course. The Shoshone and Bannock people were sent west to Fort Hall in eastern Idaho, but west of what became the park, and other Shoshone people, like some of the northern bands of the tribe, were sent to other locations. The Lemmy Agency in eastern Idaho, which closed up its shop at the turn of the century, but was a housing and schooling facility until then. And then the remaining members of the tribe were moved back to Fort Hall and reunited with their ancestors. So the tribes wanted to recognize this quote bittersweet history for them when it comes to Yellowstone. The designation of the park, preservation of the land, and more are very important to them. But it also was a time when they were ripped from their homes, blocked from their land, and placed on restrictive, at the time, housing and schooling facilities or reservations. Things have changed, of course, since then, thankfully, and the travel into the park and use of the park for traditional religious and cultural ceremonies has continued for the tribes. And, it was so they spoke last week outside the Old Faithful Lodge about the importance for the tribes of maintaining this presence in Yellowstone. It has cultural and religious significance for tribe members and leaders. And for example, another Shoshone people, a subset of the tribe, the Takudika. I learned about this from Darren himself, by the way. I should have brought it up while we were just talking to him. They were known as the, quote, mountain people, or sheep eaters was another term for them in their native language. They actually called Yellowstone home as a primary location for centuries, history has shown. And their main source, their economy was built almost entirely around obsidian from the cliffs around Yellowstone, or inside of Yellowstone. So a lot of history for the tribes. The Tukadika were relocated to Fort Hall and Wind Rivers reservations in Idaho and Wyoming, integrated into the larger bands of the Shoshone and Bannock tribes at the same time as Yellowstone's designation as a national park. And, it's just it's a fraught history, to put it mildly. But it was on display at this celebration last week. We discussed it just now with Shoshone Northwestern Band of the Shoshone tribal leader, Darren Parry. But check out these pictures and read through some of the quotes and stories that are told in this Jackson Hole News article. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. It really provides an aspect of Yellowstone very different than what most of us know about the park. Yellowstone, of course, celebrating 150 years this year as a national park. That's a pretty big deal. And it has meant a lot of preservation, to say the least. I'm not even sure that the leaders at the time who eked out this park knew exactly how much good they were doing. But as was on display last week, a lot of good. So for the tribes and everyone else. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People on the other side of these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KBNU News Time is 5:33. The news is brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. This Friday night, September 16th, the Utah State University Observatory will open its doors to the public with an open invitation to view the Cache Valley night sky from the observatory telescope from 9 to 11 p.m. Observatory coordinator James Coburn said Jupiter comes up at 9 o'clock Friday night, so that is when the doors will open.
And we'll have both Jupiter and Saturn, and then it'll be a good dark night, no moon out, so we're going to look at a nebula that's towards the center of our galaxy called the Lagoon Nebula. We've got a double star that's interesting. It's got two colors. Its name's Alberio. We've got an open cluster called the Wild Duck Cluster. And then with the big telescope, we're going to look at two galaxies that are close together. One is an edge-on spiral, and the other is kind of open-faced, and that's M81 and M82. Those are the main things we'll be looking at.
Coburn said the event is held on the roof of the SER Science Engineering Research Building.
We run up about 30 people every 10 minutes, and we probably get 100 people on the roof, and that's got you room to move around and do what you want to do. And then so some people are wondering, why do we have to wait to go up? But that's so it doesn't get too crowded up there.
And those attending Friday's free event will have access to USU's 20-inch reflecting telescope on a computerized mount. And the observatory is asking that everyone who is interested in attending first check late Friday on the website to make sure it's still going to be held, because if weather is bad or cloudy, they will hold it at another time. Additional fall public viewing nights are planned for October 21st, November 4th, and December 2nd. A Tremonton man has been charged with lewd conduct with a minor for multiple incidents that allegedly occurred in Paris, Idaho in the mid-1990s. Jason Martineau faces 5 felony counts of lewd conduct with a minor, according to court records. He was arrested and charged in April and posted a $100,000 bond in May. A criminal complaint shows Martineau engaged in sexual contact with 3 different children between the ages of 5 and 11 from 1994 to 96. The original complaint showed the alleged attacks occurred between 1992 and 1994, but those dates were amended following an investigation. The original complaint also included a charge of rape, but that charge has since been dismissed. A motion claims that Martineau was on a religious mission when the early attacks took place and was living in Utah when later ones occurred. 3 witnesses will testify to Martineau's being away from Idaho during the times the attacks are alleged to have happened. No contact orders were issued by the court barring Martineau from contact with the victims. If he is found guilty, Martineau could face up to life in prison. He is scheduled for a jury trial before District Judge Mitchell Brown on December 12th. The trial is expected to last 2 days. And Salt Lake City officials say they are trying to get more funding to help curb the problem of homelessness. The state and Salt Lake County already have money going towards an investment in more units to help house those experiencing homelessness. Salt Lake City is now joining that effort to accelerate construction. Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall said it's the largest single-year increase in permanent and transitional housing in the city's history. The mayor announced a proposal Tuesday to finance more than 400 homeless housing units through a $6 million grant, in addition to state and county money already going towards the initiative. KBNU News Time is 5:37.
We might all agree that a vacation to Vegas is good, but Hawaii is better. Same thing when you're building. Wood is good, but metal is better. If you're considering a new building for your farm or business, let Northern Steel Building show you the benefits of metal. Metal is stronger with little or no maintenance, and it doesn't burn. Find out how affordable a metal building really is by visiting northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com, or call 435-677-7300.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, 50% chance of showers and thunderstorms, overnight low around 50. Rain showers likely Thursday, slight chance of thunderstorms in the morning, then rain showers likely, and a chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon on Thursday, lower 70s. Kind of unsettled continuing Thursday night, less of a chance, but still a chance of showers on Friday, and also a 50% chance on Saturday. It's been to 69. And we've had 4,900ths of an inch of rain as of this morning. Currently, it is 67 degrees at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Whole Tree Care. They trim, shape, and remove trees and shrubs and clean it up, too. Ask about their radio discount. Call 435-760-6587. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
This year's Grand Latino Festival is Saturday, September 17th on Center Street in Logan. All are invited to celebrate the Latin culture with delicious food, lively music, dancing in the streets, and cultural performances. Festivities get underway at 4 p.m. with a parade of flags and authentic Latin dress. Then work off the calories to everyone's favorite dance-based workout, Zumba. This year's Latino Festival is presented by Gosner Foods, where you can earn between $15 and $20 an hour, quarterly bonuses, and free health insurance. Members First Credit Union. Our name says it all. Thermo Fisher Scientific. Thermo Fisher is hiring. Join their team today. iFit, a global company committed to diversity and inclusion, welcomes everyone to the Latino Festival. Bring your family, your friends, and especially your appetite to the Grand Latino Festival, Saturday, September 17th, starting at 4 p.m. on Logan Center Street.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. This week, the ballot question that you'll see on your ballot this November if you live here in Cache County, an open space question. The question being, should the county bond for up to $20 million to preserve open space over the coming years as growth continues to ransack the valley? The bond itself will be matched, which is a way that the county can sort of double the impact of the bond itself. It would equate to about roughly $2 a month, I think, is what they're saying for the average homeowner. It's a cheap way to do something really important, and it's been in some of the polling and surveying that's been done. It's been pretty popular with the public. So popular that when the county council was asked should this be placed on the ballot, it was a unanimous vote. A big change from the last time we had an opportunity to preserve open space via ordinance or initiative, which was about 11 years ago, and that was a knockdown, drag-out fight, I remember, because we had a lot of those debates here on the show. This time around, public sentiment, attitudes towards preserving open space, understandably, have definitely changed. And the reason, you don't have to be a political scientist to understand this. We're seeing space disappear quickly, and it has a tendency to make people more cognizant of the fact that it needs to be preserved. So what does all this mean, though, really? Well, the reason it's in the news again this week is the Bridgerland Conservancy nonprofit endorsed the Open Space Initiative with a statement saying basically, without a measure like this, we're likely to see open space disappear to the point where trying to preserve it 10 years from now is going to be much more expensive, but also the options are going to be fewer. They said that the vast public support for this is encouraging to see, but the Conservancy group said it is key to the future of keeping Cache Valley. We had a chance recently to speak to one of the biggest proponents and one of the task force members. Former Republican lawmaker Jack Draxler co-chaired the task force that did all the research before presenting it to the county council. And here's what he had to say about why the public is so behind this go-round.
Yes, as far as we can tell, there's really strong public support. And that survey was of registered voters. It wasn't a voluntary survey.
Sure.
Where only people who favor open space were involved.
That's right.
It was a scientific sample of registered voters, and yes, there was a very high percentage. And so the resolution that was passed yesterday places on the ballot in November a $20 million bond that has a 20-year payback. It would affect the average home in Cache County to the tune of $25 a month. We had talked a lot leading up to our discussion and the drafting of the resolution. We thought it was going to be about $31 a year, which is still less than $3 a month for the average home.
Still not bad, right?
But the tax base has broadened, and once these latest numbers were taken, it turns out to be $25 and change for the average home.
Per year. That's
which again
amazing.
is just barely over $2 a month. And obviously that's the average home. So if you've got an above average home, it might be a little more than that. If you've got a below average value home, it'll be a little less than that. But we're very excited to get out there and meet with people in whatever venues they would like to meet in, neighborhood meetings, city council meetings. We're going to try to follow the model maybe that was used when the Water Conservancy district was formed.
Okay.
That there was just great transparency and great outreach to the public, and that's what we're hoping to do too.
Since the big announcement that week of the county council approving this for the ballot in November, a lot of questions have been going around. Specifically, how will this work? We've been told public hearings, opportunity to see the research that actually informed the council when they voted to put this on the ballot with a unanimous thumbs up. People want to know. They're curious, and they're excited about this. Well, we had a chance to talk with Jack Draxler about this. Again, former Republican lawmaker Draxler, the co-chair of the task force behind the research portion of all of this. They spent months meeting weekly, looking at the data, looking at the numbers, looking at the opportunities, and then putting it all together into a report to the county council. And the council looked at that report and said, well, let's put this on the ballot for voters to decide. What happens next now as we wait for those ballots to come out? A lot of opportunities to get to know the research itself and why the county council thought this was something that should be put out there for a vote. Here's what Draxler had to say about what he learned through the process the earlier months of this year, and also what happens now, what people can expect, where they can get out and learn more themselves.
Well, yes, it'll operate very similar to the RAPS committee, the RAPS tax, where a good representation of people from throughout the county will sit on a committee. People can come to the committee and apply and say, hey, I've got a strip of land right at the mouth of Sardine Canyon. I'd love to see it remain open. Can we work something out? Or the committee could go out to landowners and ask them if they would be interested. It would totally be voluntary, and the committee then would recommend certain properties to be acquired or uses of the fund, the bond fund, and the final say would be the county council. They would then take recommendations from that committee and decide if they agreed or not with what the committee had put forward.
We also had a chance to ask Mr. Draxler his thoughts on why public sentiment towards this type of thing had changed so much in the last 10 years, and why it was getting such a positive reaction from these survey results from the county council and more. His thoughts on that, well, we're all watching the opposite of preserving open space happen around us these days.
Pace of growth has really come home to folks. Nobody on this committee is anti-growth.
Sure.
Nobody on this committee is anti-affordable housing or any other kind of housing. But everybody on this committee felt, and we had businessmen, developers, realtors, environmental, we had everybody represented. And we all said it can be done in a cooperative way.
Sure.
And we can have growth and we can preserve open space. And one of the questions, Jason, that came up last night was trails and trail connectivity. That's a problem we have right now.
Sure.
Is that we have segments of trails around the valley, but it would really be nice if we could connect them together. And again, we'll see if that's feasible. And if it is, that's one of the things that could be done with this bond. But we don't want all of the funds to go to one kind of open space. We don't want it all to go to trails. We don't want it to all go to waterways. We want to try to have an impact on all those kinds of open space that you just mentioned. One of the requirements of the resolution is there must be a formal public hearing held by the county. So there will be one. We'll get the date of that out so that folks can participate in that. And the wonderful thing is these funds can be multiplied several times over by matching funds from state, federal, and private sources. We're confident that we can perhaps even double the funds with those kind of matches.
Very nice.
So we're excited. And, the pace of growth has just helped people to realize now may be the time we should act.
Sure. And again, more on this coming soon. A website is being set up for more information on what the task force actually did. Again, they spent weekly meetings for months the earlier part of this year, just basically researching this to see if, would it really make a positive impact? $20 million bond sounds like a lot, but if you're buying land and to preserve for open space, that's gone in 3 or 4 years. So would it really be able to apply to have a lasting effect? And as Draxler said there, yes, it can be multiplied by federal and state matching grants. Because basically it's the county saying, through this vote, if voters approve it, it's the county saying to the rest of the state, hey, we're taking this seriously. So if we ask for, some help, we've invested. Taxpayers have agreed to invest, and that then oftentimes will make the state say, well, okay, we'll help out. Here's, you've got a certain amount of money. We'll add 60% more to that, but use it smartly for open space. It's a unique opportunity that really gives Cache Valley a leg up in this whole process. And again, this has to be approved by voters. There is an upcoming public hearing required by law. Date on that yet to be announced, but we'll keep you posted as soon as we know here. I'm saying likely towards the end of September is what they'll shoot for. To give people enough time to learn at that event and mull things over before ballots actually go out. And again, you'll see this question on your November ballot. If you're a registered voter here in Cache Valley, there will be this question asking you if you would like to approve this open space preserving plan. The website coming, I've been told, will also provide all of the same information that the task force looked at before they made their recommendations to the county council. And again, it had to have been an extremely persuasive set of recommendations and research because a rare thing for the county council, a unanimous vote to move this ahead to the ballot in November. So more on this to come. Again, a website, public hearing, and more. And we'll keep you posted as we learn more about those dates and announcements. Talking open space in Cache Valley is always something that these days gets more and more ears listening, because we're seeing a lot of it disappear pretty dang quickly. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Weather changes are tough on your transmission. As we move to colder winter weather, AMCO Transmission invites you to bring your vehicle in for preventative maintenance before the snow flies. Have a diesel pickup, Cummins, Duramax, or Power Stroke? AMCO in Logan is your transmission specialist, and they promise to get you in quickly. For over 50 years, AMCO Total Car Care has been experts in repair for transmissions, brakes, tune-ups, and more. Find your local AMCO at 75 West, 2000 North. Call 752-1940.
Welcome back to KVN News For the People. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today, and hope you'll join us again tomorrow. The Utah Climate Center at Utah State University has had quite a month in the headlines. I don't think they planned any of this, but a video released by Climate Center scientists, we played a bit of this earlier in the week, talked about a 10-year-old study that talked about climate change, Utah's water situation, drought, and more. Basically predicted that 10 years from when the study was done, things would look exactly like they do today. And the scientists at the Utah Climate Center didn't put it out as a told you so to Utah lawmakers. What they said is, it's important to understand that these studies tell us a lot about the solution. So here we are in the present. Let's not cry over spilled milk, although, as a follower and discusser of the legislature on the regular, I think we should point a few fingers. There's also a lesson here about listening, I think, for Utah lawmakers, something that after the 2018 ballot initiatives and their attempted rewrite of each and every one, I think lawmakers could use a dose of humility, which is essential for civility. So I will point the finger that much, at least. When the experts supply you with data, maybe close your mouth, open your ears a bit more. And I think our lawmakers here in Cache Valley are very good at that, but Senate leadership right now has not been good at that. Others in the House especially have not been good at that. So I will point the finger that much. Climate scientists at the Utah Climate Center, far nicer than I am, said, let's just look at this and say, this tells us why we're where we're at, what the factors involved, and also gives us a roadmap for what we can do to both prevent it from being worse when it comes to our water management, when it comes to our housing management, when it comes to, everything is interconnected here. It's a great video. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. And then along came a question from a listener. And we're going to actually be joined by climate scientist John Meyer from the USU Climate Center, the State Climate Center, Utah's Climate Center, housed at Utah State University. He'll be joining us tomorrow to answer a listener question that I thought was absolutely great. It's a question that kind of encompasses all of this, climate change, our current drought situation, our long-term water issues, discussions involving the Colorado River in southern Utah, and the simple fact that everyone's finally accepted, thankfully, that the water everyone's fighting over never really existed. The amount of water available in this multi-state compact involving the Colorado River, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, and California kind of thrown in there at the end because it all washes out there in the end, or doesn't, depending on how much we all upstream take from it. This multi-state compact was based on data that's more than 100 years old and came after two of the wettest years on record for the region, an amount of water that has not been seen since and hadn't been recorded previous. Now, I don't think anybody planned that. I don't think there was anything nefarious behind this, but it's a fact that took a long time for Utah water managers, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona as well, to accept. They have finally accepted it, and the discussion is a lot more realistic now when it comes to how much water is available. But encompassing all of this is this simple question sent in by a listener that we'll be talking about tomorrow on the show with climate scientist and the guy that's known here in Utah as the reservoir guy. I was told that by a few state lawmakers that Professor Meyer at Dr. Meyer at Utah State University's State Climate Center is the guy to talk to about reservoirs, because this is what he does. He researches and studies both the history and the contemporary data around our water situation, how much there is of it, where is it going, where it's coming from, or not in this current situation. And he'll be joining us tomorrow to answer this listener's question. So what was the listener's question? The listener's question was very simple. Is Utah's weather getting weirder? This is one of the least understood aspects of climate change, and it took a long time to stop. I used to eye roll when I would see this. Every time it snowed earlier or later in the year than is typical, people would point to that and say, yeah, tell me about your global warming. Well, the theory of climate change, which is now a reality, no longer a theory, we're seeing it play out, is that the warming of the planet would lead to disrupted weather patterns, and then things would change. Climate would change. Regionally, hemispherically, we've seen it already with jet stream changes, with ocean temperature changes, with water where it's been plentiful, no longer being so plentiful, and areas that have been very dry are suddenly doused. We saw this with the heat dome over Utah and the Intermountain West for the last couple of years. That's been driving storms down, and Texas spent a long time underwater. I shouldn't laugh because lives were lost. It's a very real and serious thing, and that is what we'll be talking about tomorrow. Answering this question from a listener: is Utah's weather getting weirder? A great question, and it gives us an opportunity to kind of dig into all of this in a much more relatable way than it's usually talked about, connecting all the dots, literally, and looking ahead, too. What can we do about this? Considering it's probably going to be around for a while, what can we do about weird weather? How can we prepare for it? Dr. John Meyer of USU's Climate Center will be joining us tomorrow to have that discussion. Appreciate Kevin for sending this question in. Charlie will be with us as well for the For the People Theater Hour in Hour 1. Dr. Meyer joining us in Hour 2. So be sure to tune in tomorrow to KVNU's For the People. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.